Well, hi there, everybody. I'm Jack Church, and this is my podcast, The Jack Church Show. You may also be watching via our YouTube channel called Traveling with Jack and Pam. Either way, thanks a bunch for joining me today. For those of you who are able to view this, you no doubt can see I have come to an unbelievably beautiful spot here in Southern Oregon. For those of you listening, let me describe it for you. I hiked 3.5 miles up into the mountains here. It's the Southern Cascade Mountains, to a viewpoint that is giving me this incredible view of Lost Creek Lake. It's a perfect fall day in October. Temperatures in the 70s, a little bit of light wind, bright sunshine, just some high wispy clouds here and there. I can see where the Rogue River flows into the lake, and then it's released on the other end of the lake, the Rogue River that is, then makes its way all the way to the Pacific Ocean. I like being out in nature because it makes me feel alive. And that's something that I want and need on a day like today. You see, it's been a year now since my lovely bride, Pam, went to sleep and then woke up in heaven. That's right. I said she went to sleep in the very bed that we shared, and then she woke up in heaven. You may say, why do I view it that way? Well, I like it that way. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It is very rare that I tell somebody, oh, she died. I just don't like saying that. When I say she died, it means she's gone forever and I'll never see her again. And I've learned that I don't want to think that way. And I don't believe that way. Now, everybody's got their own beliefs, but I believe in God. I believe in the resurrection, and I believe in the afterlife. Now, does it make me any less sad? Well, no, I'm still incredibly sad that she's gone. I mean, we were best friends since high school, and it's 2020, as a general rule, has sucked. She died in late 2019, and then we had the pandemic. And of course, we had wildfires here where I live. It's just been one thing after another. It's just not been a good last 1 year. And that's where, too, a lot of people, they dread that 1 year mark when their loved one left this earth. Or maybe it was some other significant event in your life. But either way, I'd been preparing for it, and I thought, you know, what makes the 1 year mark any more different than the 6-month mark, the 7-month mark, the 8th month mark? You know, my daughter mentioned, she goes, well, Dad, she says, every month on the 20th, I think about it. And I thought, yeah, I do too. And when I start to get really sad about it, I then remember how stunningly beautiful and shapely and fantastic looking. I've told you before, I know I brag about it a lot. I had a hot wife. But those last few months, that was not my sweet Pam anymore, because cancer was just eating away her bones and her body, and it wasn't good. She was a fighter. But I like to think that on that day that she went to sleep and woke up in heaven, that was her greatest day ever, and I know it was. And she believed that too. For me, yes, incredibly sad day. But what have I learned in the last year? I've actually learned a lot. I've learned empathy for others who've gone through loss. That's largely why I started a podcast and started doing videos and things like that, because I searched out there and I thought, I just want to find somebody real and authentic to talk to about this. And so that's what I do. I talk with you guys. And I try and be as real and authentic as I can be, as we share this same little journey, as we call it. And somebody said, well, a journey has an end or a goal, doesn't it? And yes, in my case, it does. One day I'll go to sleep, and then I'll wake up in heaven, and I should see Pam. Now, people always ask, and I do too, what's the relationship going to be like? Will we still be husband and wife, or will we just be passing spirits? How's it going to be? I don't really know. But the thing I do know is it's probably not going to matter, because it's going to be fantastic. And if some of you listening or watching are maybe not really believers going, oh, I don't want to believe that. It's like, man, that's your choice. But I guess my thought is, even if I'm wrong, I'm glad I believe this way, because it does give me hope. I've also learned over the course of the year that I was able to make it a year without my beautiful wife. And I started thinking about it. And there were only 2 years. Then add this year. I had 2 years in college. Then this 1 year since she's been gone. I've only had 3 years of my entire life that I was alone. The other years, growing up, I lived at home with my parents. In college, I had roommates. Well, and then I had 2 years where I didn't have roommates. And then I had just this last year without Pam. Wow. That takes some getting used to. When you've spent the vast majority of 50 plus years living with people, to have nobody to share your space with, so to speak, has been an adjustment. But I've learned I can do it. I learned how to iron shirts in the last year. Pam always did that. I hated doing it, but I learned how to iron. I was always a good cook, so that wasn't a problem. I've learned how to plan my menus for just me, whereas I used to plan them for both of us. Haven't changed a lot there. It just means now that I have 2 meals instead of 1. I've learned that it's okay to cry. I've learned that when I do cry, I feel better. I've learned in this last year that I don't cry as much, but I still do cry. I've learned that those special dates, anniversaries, birthdays, things like that I can get through them. And I can make them good days. I've learned I have to work at it, though. I have to make an effort. I've learned that it's important to still get up every morning, hit the floor, take that shower, brush that hair, brush those teeth, make yourself presentable, and get out there and get after it. I've learned that despite having a happy face on at work all day long, and I work in television and being the happy-go-lucky weather guy, that deep down I still have sadness. But I've learned how to mask it. I've learned how to keep moving forward. That's really important. I've learned how to pray in a way that prayer actually means something. I've learned how I think to talk to my kids better. Pam was always the talker. She had the deeper relationship, she really did. But I've found that now I could do that and grow it on a deeper level. I've also learned my kids actually like me. Go figure. They desperately want me to move back to Tennessee and be near them. Who would have thought? Pam and I, we lived on the West Coast for probably 25 of our married years. Our kids lived on the West Coast, and they end up back in the part of the world where we grew up. And Pam had always said we would never go back there because we just loved the West Coast. Well, I've learned that in this last year that maybe I will go back there. But I've also learned not to make quick decisions. I've learned some of the things that I thought in the first couple of months after Pam passed that I was going to do, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't do it. I'm kind of glad I stayed the course. I learned in this last year how to go on vacation by myself. And I learned it was pretty good. I went to Utah for a week, hiked in the national parks, met fascinating people. I think one of the most important things, too, that I've learned is empathy for others. I used to be the type person, and we're all guilty of this. If you say you're not, you're probably not being truthful with yourself. I still remember my mother-in-law after she lost her husband, Claude. They'd been married 60 years. And she was so distraught. And she kept telling us, you just don't know, you just don't know. And Pam and I, we would say to ourselves, yes, we do. We've been married 30 years. We get it. We understand. No, we didn't. I really didn't. She lived another 6 years without her husband, always saying she looked forward to the day she was going to heaven to see him again. I learned that was a good thing. I learned that in this last year. But I also did learn something else from her. The 6 years that she lived after his death were absolutely miserable for her. And she kind of made everybody around her miserable. She just wasn't happy. And she made no bones about it to everyone with her. And I learned I don't want to be that way. I did learn, though, I can't always be up and happy. But I did learn I've got to make an effort to be happy. I've also learned to be my own best friend. Sounds so odd, doesn't it? But I have. I've learned to be my own best friend. Now, all the gurus out there dealing with grief will tell you, don't isolate, don't do that. And let me be perfectly clear, I don't do that. But I do enjoy taking my hikes alone. I enjoy playing golf alone. Things like that. Those are activities that were special to Pam and I can still enjoy those things. Because I've learned that I guess to some degree that I think she's kind of still with me. But that gets back to what I may have said earlier. I've also learned she's not coming back. I know she's not. I know that when she woke up in heaven, none of us could ever imagine what that must have been like. And I hope it is as spectacular as she always dreamed it would be. So I've learned a lot. I really have. I've learned that I don't know what the next day is going to bring. The next week, the next month, the next year. But you know what may have been the most important thing that I learned in this last year as I'm sitting here thinking about it? The most important thing that I learned was not to be afraid. I used to be the world's biggest hypochondriac. Pam would always go, oh, brother. She'd call me Dr. Google. Anything and everything, I would panic about it. Any little spot on my body, any little pain. I'm no longer Dr. Google. I'm no longer a hypochondriac. In this last year, I've learned not to fear death, not to fear the unknown, because I watched my beautiful wife face that. And she walked over to the other side. And I have to believe she's just fine. And she told me and others in her final few weeks, she says, don't live life in fear. She says, it's no fun. And I get that now. I really do. So that may be the biggest thing I've learned in the last year. I guess after saying all those things out loud that I've learned in this last year, that while 2020 may have sucked to some degree, to a great degree it has, it's also been a good year in the fact that I have learned more in the past year than I may have learned in my entire life prior. Does it make the loss any easier? Yes and no. I still miss her so much. After I leave today and go home tonight, I'll probably cook something on the grill and watch a little football. That's when I really do wish she was there with me. Those moments of silence are still kind of hard. So I'm still learning that. The bottom line, there's going to be a lot to learn in this coming year. I also hope that I can learn how to grow this podcast and make this my calling in life. I believe it is. I believe it's more than just being the local TV weatherman. I really want to impact lives and help others who are in this journey. So I hope that you'll share this message with others out there and tell them about my podcast and tell them maybe listen to this guy. He might be onto something. Again, I'm not a professional. Don't claim to be a doctor, anything like that. Just a guy making it through life. I always like to point out too that, I think it helps when it's somebody like us who's, I'm still active, still working for a living. I'm not retired, because it's a different journey for us than like my mother-in-law, who they were married 60 years. They've been retired, living in their home. That was a different experience she had. For us, it's different for everyone. But maybe my experience and my point in life right now helps you as well, okay? So thanks again for checking in with us. Share the message. And again, I just hope that, as I always like to tell you, make it a great day, but more importantly, let's make it a better tomorrow as we head into for what is now my year 2, as Pam is now enjoying her journey in heaven. Bye now.